Look, every military installation in the galaxy has that one piece of equipment nobody wants to talk about. You know, the type. The thing that looked great in the procurement brochure cost approximately 7 planetary budgets and turned out to be spectacularly, magnificently useless. For the Galactic Combat Training Facility on Station Kepler 442b, that distinguished honor belonged to Training Pod 7. They called it the Crucible. The manufacturers called it the Ultimate Warrior Enhancement System. Everyone else called it the Death Box. They're never in front of command, because apparently that hurt feelings and violated some clause in the warranty. Commander Vex stood in front of Pod 7 with all 4 of his arms crossed, which was really the only way a Saurian could properly express maximum disapproval. His scales had gone from their usual forest green to a sort of stressed-out chartreuse, which happened whenever he had to explain to yet another bright-eyed recruit why their species' greatest warriors had washed out of his program screaming for their mothers. 47 species. 47 different biological makeups, environmental preferences, and cultural backgrounds. Every single one of them had failed Pod 7. The Thraxians, who could survive in volcanic vents, lasted 4 minutes. The Creelians, ice world natives with 3 hearts, made it to 6 minutes before their vital signs went haywire. The Zentari, those smug crystalline jerks who claimed they were beyond physical limitations, shattered. Literally. Bah. Literally. There was still a maintenance bill pending for the cleanup. The statistics were actually impressive if you enjoyed professional humiliation. 100% failure rate, 0 graduations, 17 medical evacuations, 3 complete psychological breakdowns, and 1 species, the Glorpians, who afterward petitioned the Galactic Council to have the pod classified as a war crime. The pod itself sat in the center of the training bay like a metallic egg of suffering, all brushed titanium and ominous humming. Warning lights blinked in 7 languages, including 2 dead ones, because apparently ancient civilizations also wanted future generations to know this was a terrible idea. Vex had given this speech 234 times. He'd perfected his delivery. He knew exactly when to pause for dramatic effect, which statistics to emphasize, and how to make even the most arrogant warrior species reconsider their life choices. Today's trainee, was humanity's first representative to the program. Vex had heard things about humans. Weird things. They'd shown up to the galactic stage about 5 years ago, and in that time they'd developed a reputation for being either incredibly lucky or incredibly stupid. The jury was still out. They came from a planet called Earth, which allegedly had weather, seasons, and naturally occurring poison in the form of certain plants and animals. Sounded unpleasant, but nothing the pod couldn't handle. The human walked into the training bay like he was strolling into a coffee shop. He was tall by human standards, built like someone who lifted heavy things for fun, with dark hair and the kind of easy smile that suggested he'd never met a situation he could unjoke his way through. Jack Morrison reporting for training, he said, extending one hand in that bizarre human greeting ritual. Vex stared at it with a second set of eyes, the ones he reserved for examining suspicious substances. "Commander Vex," he replied, not taking the hand. "You're late. Traffic was murder. Apparently there's only one mass transit tube, and it was packed with these little fuzzy guys who kept sneezing. Do you know about the sneezing guys? They're adorable." Vex's scales shifted another shade, toward yellow. This was going to be a long day. He launched into his standard briefing, the one he'd memorized, complete with holographic displays of previous failures and mortality statistics. Jack nodded along, hands in his pockets, occasionally saying things like "unhung" and "makes sense" at completely inappropriate moments. "This pod has defeated every warrior the galaxy has produced," Vex concluded, his voice dropping to what he considered an intimidating register. "The Thraxian champion, the Corellian Defense Force, the entire Zentari Ascendancy Guard." Cool, Jack said. "So nobody's beaten it." "Correct. And you're telling me this because you need to understand what you're facing. This isn't a game. This isn't basic training. Pod 7 has a 100% failure rate." Jack's smile got wider. "So you're saying I'd be the first?" Vex felt a headache forming behind his primary eyes. "I'm saying you'll most likely fail like everyone else. But I could be the first to pass. That's not the point of this conversation. Sounds like it could be, though. I mean, somebody's gotta be first eventually, right? Law of averages. Jack walked up to Pod 7, running his hand along the surface like he was inspecting a used car. So what's inside this bad boy? Lasers. Spinning blades. Existential dread. All of the above, actually, Vex muttered. Plus, environmental extremes that simulate the worst. Conditions from 300 planets simultaneously. Neat. Vex's third arm unconsciously reached for his flask. He didn't drink anymore, hadn't in cycles, but days like this made him nostalgic for the habit. You haven't even heard the full briefing. Don't need to. You had me at 100% failure rate. Besides, how bad can it be? Famous last words, Vex thought. He'd heard variations of that phrase right before every single medical evacuation. Lieutenant Cree scuttled into the observation room on 6 legs, her antenna twitching in that way that meant she was already stressed, and the day had barely started. She was a Chitrux, insectoid species, excellent with details, terrible with confrontation, which made her absolutely perfect for safety briefings, and absolutely terrible for her anxiety levels. "Is this the human?" she asked, her voice coming through her translator with a slight buzzing quality. "The one who volunteered for Pod 7. Volunteered is a strong word," Vex said. "I told him it was impossible. He took that as a challenge." "Oh no. Oh yes." Jack was currently doing something with his wrist device, probably checking messages or playing one of those primitive human games. He looked up when Cree approached, gave her a friendly wave that made all 6 of her legs twitch. "Hey, you must be the safety person. Love the antennae. Very expressive." Cree's mandibles clicked nervously. She'd given this briefing 47 times to 47 different species. Each one had reacted with appropriate horror. Something told her this would be different. "Mr. Morrison, I need to explain the pod specifications before you proceed." Jack's fiend. "Mr. Morrison is my dad, and trust me, you don't want to meet that guy." "Jack, then, the pod operates on a rotating environmental system. It will subject you to temperature extremes ranging from -100 to +200 degrees Celsius. Gravity fluctuations from 0.3 to 4 times standard. Atmospheric composition changes every 40 seconds. Radiation exposure at the upper limits of most species' tolerance. Sensory overload protocols including strobe lighting, ultrasonic frequencies, and scent markers designed to trigger stress responses." She paused, waiting for the usual reaction. Fear, hesitation, maybe some sweating if the species was capable of it. Jack scratched his chin. "Is there a cup holder?" Cree's antennae went completely flat. "I'm sorry." "What? Cup holder?" "Like, can I bring a water bottle in?" "You're going to be fighting for survival. Hydration is provided through an emergency medical system. So that's a no on the cup holder." Bummer. He looked genuinely disappointed, like this was the deal breaker. Vex stepped forward, deciding to try a different approach. Visual evidence. He activated the holographic display, bringing up the gallery of failure, as he privately called it. 47 species. 47 humiliating defeats. "This is Rex the Unmovable," he said, gesturing to a massive armored creature that looked like a rhinoceros mixed with a tank. Lasted 3 minutes before thermal shock incapacitated him. "This is Scifi of the Krealian elite. Triple-hearted. Cold-adapted warrior. 4 minutes. Gravitational stress. And this one, my personal favorite, is Zaxxer the Unbreakable from the Zentari Ascendancy. The crystal dude who shattered. You've done research." "Nah, you mentioned it earlier. I'm a good listener when I want to be." Jack leaned closer to the hologram, studying each failed warrior. "These folks all look pretty tough. They are. Best of the best from their respective militaries. And the pod beat all of them. Decisively." Jack nodded slowly, that smile never leaving his face. "Okay, but here's my question. What's the actual goal? Like, am I supposed to survive For a certain amount of time? Complete an objective. Just not die. It was a fair question, one that Vex had been asking Command for the last 3 years. The official objective is to complete the full training protocol. 30 minutes. Cycling through all environmental conditions while maintaining combat effectiveness. Combat effectiveness? There's fighting involved. Holographic opponents. They adapt to your species' combat style. Sounds fun. Cree made a sound like a kettle whistling. Fun. Trainee Morrison, 3 species have required extended medical care. The psychological trauma alone. Look, I appreciate the concern. I really do. But I've already signed up. Flew all the way out here, and I've got a reputation to maintain. Plus, he patad the pot again. I've had worse Tuesdays. Vex pulled up the waiver on his date. 27 pages of legal documentation, liability waivers, next of kin notifications, and species-specific medical disclaimers. He'd seen warriors from proud martial cultures take hours to read through it, consulting with their chain of command, their spiritual advisors, sometimes their therapists. Jack scrolled through the whole thing in about 15 seconds. Thumbprinted the bottom. Done. Excellent. You didn't read any of that. I read the important parts. Basically says if I die, I die. Right. Cool. With me. It also outlines specific risks for your species. Humans have never been tested in these conditions. First time for everything. Besides, my ex-wife was scarier than any torture pod, and I survived 7 years of that. How bad can this be? Kree's antennae were now completely horizontal, a Cheatrock's expression of absolute disbelief. He's going to die. Vex. He's going to die, and Command is going to blame us. Probably, Vex agreed. Mr. Morrison, final chance to reconsider. Jack stretched, the way humans did before physical activity. All casual confidence and complete ignorance of impending doom. Commander, with all respect, I didn't come all the way to your fancy space station to back down from a challenge. Besides, the guys in the barracks bet me 20 credits I wouldn't last 5 minutes. I've got a financial incentive here. 20 credits. Your life is worth 20 credits. Hey, that's like 3 beers back home. Good beers too, not the cheap stuff. Vex's scales had progressed through the entire stress color spectrum, and were now settling on a defeated beige. Fine. Suit up. Medical will monitor from the observation deck. When you inevitably tap out, hit the emergency release. It's the big red button. Even humans should be able to figure that out. Ouch, speciest much. Jack grinned. Don't worry, Commander. I got this. He walked toward the preparation chambers, still way too relaxed. Still completely oblivious to the fact that he was about to experience what the Galactic Council had officially designated as Enhanced Stress Protocol. Level 9, which was bureaucratic language for legalized suffering. Vex watched him go, all 4 arms now hanging at his sides in resignation. Kree. Prep the medical team. We're going to need them. Already done. Already done. Also contacted the trauma counselors. Good thinking. In the preparation chamber, Jack changed into the standard training suit, a sleek black number that monitored vitals and provided minimal protection. Minimal being the key word. The pod didn't believe in making things easy. Through the observation window, Vex could see him bouncing on his heels, rolling his shoulders, looking like he was about to go for a jog instead of enter a device that had broken the galaxy's finest warriors. May your gods have mercy, Vex muttered. His species' gods have a weird sense of humor, Kree added. I read the file. They worship multiple deities, most of whom seem actively hostile to human well-being. That explains so much. Jack stepped up to the pod entrance. The door hissed open, revealing the interior. A circular chamber, 10 meters across, covered in sensors and emitters. Innocent-looking, really, that was part of the trap. Ed Bike gave them a thumbs up. Another bizarre human gesture, and stepped inside. The door sealed behind him with a sound like a tune closing. In the observation room, every monitor came alive with biometric data. heart rate, blood pressure, core temperature, neural activity, stress hormones. Dr. Helix, the facility's medical officer, adjusted his eye stalks to focus on the readings. Baseline established, he announced in his gurgling voice. Human physiology is remarkably stable, perhaps too stable. This species is either very hardy or very stupid. Why not both? Vex suggested. Inside the pod, Jack looked around, taking in his through the speakers. They could hear him muttering. Okay, not bad. Little stare-up. Could use some artwork, maybe a plant. He's critiquing the decor, Kree said faintly. In a torture device. Vex reached for his comm. Morrison, can you hear me? Loud and clear, boss. The protocol will begin in 30 seconds. Defend yourself, maintain awareness, and remember the emergency release. Got it? Hey, quick question. You guys ever consider adding music? Like workout music? Just a thought. Vex closed the channel. I'm starting the protocol. His claw hovered over the activation command. In 3 years, this moment never got easier. He was about to put another living being through systematic torture in the name of training. And even though they'd all volunteered, even though they'd all been warned, it still felt wrong. But orders were orders. He pressed the button. Pod 7 activated with a sound like reality, tearing at the seams. And Jack Morrison's very bad day officially began. The first stage was always thermal shock. The pod's designers, whoever they were, and Vex had fantasized about meeting them in a dark alley, believed in starting strong. Temperature in the chamber spiked from a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius to 200 degrees in approximately 3 seconds. Most species started screaming at this point. Jack Morrison said, "Whoa, okay, that's warm." Every monitor in the observation room showed red alerts. Core temperature rising. Skin conductivity spiking. Cardiovascular stress. Standard reactions for any species suddenly thrown into an oven. Except Jack wasn't collapsing. He was standing there, sweat already forming on his exposed skin, looking mildly annoyed like someone had turned up a thermostat too high. "Trainee Morrison, confirm your status," Vex demanded. "Yeah, I'm good. Little hot in here. Reminds me of summer in Arizona. You ever been to Arizona, Commander? It's like this, but with scorpions." Dr. Helix's eye stalks were quivering. His core temperature is rising, but with intolerance. Sweating response is highly efficient. How's he not cooking? The Thoraxian lasted 4 minutes in these conditions, Kree said, checking her records. He's been in for 30 seconds, and he's complaining about regional Earth weather. The pod escalated. Phase 2. Gravity manipulation. The chamber's gravity generators spun up, tripling the force inside. Every warrior who'd made it this far had dropped to their knees, sometimes lower. The Zentari, those crystalline jerks, had started fracturing under their own weight. Jack's knees buckled slightly. He caught himself, adjusted his stance, and then slowly stood back up. His face was red, veins standing out on his neck, but he was standing. "Okay, now that's interesting," he grunted. "Little heads up next time would be nice." 3 times standard gravity, Dr. Helix said, his translator struggling with a species equivalent of shocked disbelief. He should not be able to stand. His skeletal structure should be compromised. "Earth gravity is 0.97 standard," Vex said, pulling up the file. "That's not enough to explain this." Inside the pod, Jack was testing his movement. Slow, careful steps. He looked like he was walking through water, but he was walking. Then he dropped down and did a push-up. Just one, slow and controlled, but he did it. Is he exercising? Kree's antennae were vibrating. In triple gravity. In 200-degree heat. Is he exercising? I'm staying limber. Jack's voice came through the speakers. Gotta keep the blood flowing, you know? Learned that in basic. The pod did not appreciate being mocked. Phase 3 activated atmospheric composition shift. Oxygen levels dropped by 40%. Nitrogen increased. Carbon dioxide spiked, a mixture specifically designed to trigger panic responses in most species. Jack took a deep breath, held it, exhaled slowly. Little thing up here. Feels like Denver. Any of you been to Denver? Mile High City. Thin air. Great skiing. He's comparing military training to his planet's tourist destinations. Vex said to nobody in particular. This is actually happening. Dr. Helix was making notes frantically. His oxygen saturation is dropping, but compensating. Respiratory rate increased, but controlled. Either Earth's atmosphere is more hostile than reported, or humans have abnormal adaptation to low oxygen environments. Both, Vex muttered. Probably both. The pod cycled through the next phases, with increasing desperation. Strobe lighting designed to cause disorientation. Ultrasonic frequencies calibrated to cause pain. Sent markers that should have triggered primal fear responses. Jack squinted against the lights, put his fingers in his ears, and commented that the smell reminded him of his college dormitory. He's been in for 5 minutes, Kree announced. That's longer than the Kreelian elite. The observation room was filling up. Word had spread through the facility that something weird was happening with Pod 7. Off-duty, personnel crowded around the windows, watching the monitors, placing bets. Vex could hear the whispered conversations, the disbelief, the theories. Humans must have military-grade biomodifications. No, I heard they're from a death world. Class 9 hostile. That's impossible. Death worlds don't produce spacefaring species. Tell that to the guy doing jumping jacks in the murder pod. Vex looked up sharply. Jack was indeed doing jumping jacks. Slow, labored jumping jacks in triple gravity and 200-degree heat. But jumping jacks nonetheless. Morrison, what are you doing? Cardio, sir? Figure if I'm going to be in here, might as well make it count. Do you guys have any water? I'm getting pretty thirsty. Phase 4, activated automatically. Combat simulation. Holographic opponents materialized in the chamber, adapting to human combat styles pulled from the galactic database. They were set to maximum aggression. The first holographic opponent charged. Jack sidestepped, threw a punch that passed through the hologram, and looked confused. Oh, they're not solid. Okay, so this is like VR training. We had stuff like this back home. Little more advanced, but same idea. The hologram adapted, striking at Jack with energy projections that were very much solid. He blocked one, took another on the shoulder, winced. Okay, those are real. Good to know. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for the next decade. Jack Morrison overheated, oxygen deprived, crushed by triple gravity, started fighting back. Not with the refined technique of a martial artist or the brutal efficiency of a soldier. He felt like someone who'd been in bar fights, street fights with his brothers over the TV remote. It was sloppy, he was effective. He was winning. 7 minutes. Gray announced. He's passed the Thraxian champion's record. The holograms increased in number. 3, then 5, then 10. The pod was throwing everything it had at this infuriating human who refused to quit. Jack was breathing hard now, really hard, sweat pouring off him in streams. His movements were slowing. His blocks were getting weaker. This was it, Vex thought. This was where he'd tap out. Instead, Jack moved to one of the chamber walls, where a ventilation grate was releasing the superheated air. He stood directly in front of it, let the heat blast over him, and closed his eyes. What is he doing now? Dr. Helix asked. I think, Vex said slowly, he's enjoying himself. This reminds me of the sauna at my gym, Jack said, his voice tired but content. Man, I miss that place. Best part of leg day. Just sit in the heat, let the muscles relax. You guys have saunas? You should get saunas. Sauna Kree looked it up. It's a human recreational activity. They voluntarily sit in extreme heat for pleasure. For pleasure, Vex repeated. They do this for fun. Apparently, often after physical exercise, it's considered relaxing. In the observation room, nobody spoke. They were watching a human treat their most advanced training system like a day of the spa. He'd found the steam vents. He was optimizing the heat distribution. He was treating Pod 7 like a wellness center. 10 minutes, someone announced. Jack had stopped fighting the holograms and started using them as resistance training. He'd grab one, use its weight, do a movement, let it go. The combat AI was confused. It kept trying to kill him. He kept using it as workout equipment. "Commander," Dr. Hellick said carefully, "I think we need to reconsider our understanding of human physiology." "You think his vital signs are stabilizing?" "He's not getting worse. He's adapting." "To Pod 7. To Pod 7. Vex looked at the human on the monitors, this absurd creature from an allegedly normal world, and felt his entire understanding of galactic military standards crumble. "Increase the intensity," he said. "Sir? You heard me. Maximum settings. If he wants heat, let's give him heat." It was petty. It was unprofessional. Vex didn't care. Pod 7 was his responsibility, and it had never been beaten. It wasn't about to lose to a species that considered extreme temperatures a recreational activity. The Pod S system screamed in protest as they ramped up to levels that had never been tested with a living subject. Temperature hit its absolute maximum. Gravity peaked at 4 times standard. Every system firing simultaneously. Jack Morrison dropped to one knee. Finally, a reaction that made sense. Then he took off his shirt. "Oh, come on," Vex said. "Much better," Jack said, using his shirt to wipe sweat from his face. "Hey, Commander, can you turn it up a bit? I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a good workout here. How much time do I have left?" 20 minutes, Vex said flatly. "Cool. I'm gonna see if I can adjust this steam situation, make it more even, you know." And that's when Jack Morrison started actively modifying Pod 7's environmental systems, turning the galaxy's most feared training device into his personal sauna. The next phase of this disaster was about to begin. At the 15-minute mark, Jack Morrison was shirtless, glistening with sweat, and had somehow figured out how to manipulate the pod's ventilation system. He'd wedged his training shirt into one of the exhaust vents, redirecting the steam flow, creating what he called better circulation. "It's all about the humidity ratio," he explained to nobody in particular, though everyone in the observation room was listening in horrified fascination. "Too dry and you're just baking. Little moisture in the air. That's when you get the deep muscle relaxation. This is basic sauna science, people." "Sauna science," Vex repeated. His scales had given up on color changes and settled on a sort of defeated gray. "He's lecturing us on sauna science while our tortured device tortures him." "I don't think it's torturing him anymore," Cree said quietly. "Look at his vitals." Dr. Helix adjusted the display. Heart rate was elevated but steady. Blood pressure, high but consistent. Stress hormones had actually started to decrease. "He's in a flow state. His body has fully adapted to the conditions. This is unprecedented. Everything about this is unprecedented," Vex growled. Jack had moved on from modifying the ventilation to using the combat holograms as exercise equipment. The AI had given up trying to kill him and was now just spawning at regular intervals, while this insane human used them for resistance training. He'd grab a holographic opponent, use its energy field as weight, do a curl, then dismiss it and move on to the next one. 5 more reps, Jack grunted, doing something that looked like a cross between a deadlift and a wrestling move. "Come on, embrace the pain. Pain is just weakness leaving the body." He's quoting motivational fitness phrases, someone in the observation room said, in Pod 7. He's quoting motivational fitness phrases. The crowd had grown to nearly 50 personnel, off-duty officers, maintenance crews. Even some of the facility's administrative staff had shown up to witness the impossible. Bets were being placed. Theories were being argued. One Zentari observer kept insisting this was an elaborate hoax, that the human was fake, that nobody could survive Pod 7 and look happy about it. Jack, oblivious to his audience, had started singing. Not well, mind you. The human singing voice was apparently not uniform across the species, and Jack's particular voice was what charitable people might call enthusiastic. He was murdering some Earth song about staying alive, which several audience members found either ironic or prophetic, depending on their pessimism levels. 17 minutes, Korea announced. He's surpassed every record we have. Baila. Vex's communicator beeped. Command. Of course, command was calling. Word had traveled fast. He stepped away from the observation window, accepting the call with the resignation of someone who knew their career was about to get very complicated. Commander Vex, this is Admiral Quicks. I'm hearing reports of an incident with Pod 7. Admiral Quicks was as crystalline and stern, who believed in protocol above all else. She had approximately zero tolerance for nonsense, and the current situation was at least 60% nonsense by volume. Not an incident, Admiral. A training session. A training session that's lasted 17 minutes in Pod 7, the pod that's never had a successful session. Yes, Admiral. Is the trainee dying? No, Admiral. Injured? No, Admiral. Then what in the 7 spiral arms is happening? Vex looked back at the monitors. Jack had found the water reclamation system, the one that recycled moisture from the air, and was directing its output to create what he called optimal steam conditions. He'd essentially turned a military torture device into a custom spa experience. He's relaxing, Admiral. Silence on the other end. Long silence. The kind of silence that Korea's died in. Repeat that, Commander. The human is relaxing. He's modified the pod's environmental systems to create what his species calls a sauna. He appears to be enjoying himself. Enjoying? Yes. Admiral, I'm coming down there. Don't let him die before I arrive. The call ended. Vex returned to the observation window where Jack was now doing some sort of stretching routine. Commentary and all. Really gotta focus on hip flexibility. That's where humans store a lot of tension. The hip flexors, man, they get so tight, especially if you sit all day. Any of you folks have desk jobs? Gotta stretch those hips. A medical officer from the Theraxian delegation, the same species whose champion had failed at 4 minutes, pushed through the crowd. This is impossible. Our warriors train in volcanic vents. We have thermal resistances built into our biology. How is this soft-skinned mammal outlasting us? Dr. Helix pulled up a comparison chart. I've been analyzing the data. Humans have an extremely efficient thermoregulation system based on water evaporation. They can sweat from pores across their entire body. Most species have limited cooling mechanisms. Humans are essentially self-contained climate control systems. They sweat everywhere. The Theraxian sounded disgusted. That's revolting. That's effective, Dr. Helix corrected. Combined with their cardiovascular efficiency and apparent psychological resilience, they're ideally suited for exactly these conditions. Nobody is suited for Pod 7. That's the point of Pod 7. Tell that to the human doing yoga in there. Sure enough, Jack had moved into what he called a warrior pose, balancing on one leg in quadruple gravity while steam billowed around him. Really feeling the stretch in my IT band. You guys know about IT bands. They're terrible, always getting tight. This is great for them, though. 20 minutes, Cree said. He's 2/3 through the protocol. The observation room had gone quiet. This wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't even weird. This was history. They were watching a human succeed where every other species had failed, and he was doing it while providing fitness advice. Admiral Quicks arrived like a storm front. Crystalline form refracting the overhead lights in sharp angles. The crowd parted. Vex saluted. She ignored him, moving directly to the observation window. She watched Jack Morrison for exactly 30 seconds. He was currently doing push-ups in quadruple gravity, counting them out loud, occasionally commenting on proper form. This is the human. Yes, Admiral. He's not dying. No, Admiral. He's not even uncomfortable. He claims it reminds him of Arizona. Admiral Quicks turned to Vex with an expression that, if she'd had a face instead of a crystalline structure, would have been pure disbelief. What is Arizona? A region on Earth. Apparently, it's hot there. How hot? Dr. Helix pulled up the data. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius. Low humidity, high UV radiation, venomous fauna. Humans consider it a desirable vacation destination. They vacation in those conditions. They retire there. Admiral. Voluntarily, Quix's crystalline structure pulsed, her species equivalent of a headache. What kind of death world produces a species that vacations in extreme heat? Earth is classified as a Class 7 garden world. Admiral. Pleasant. Moderate. Safe. Then our classification system is broken. On the monitors, Jack had found the thermal vents again and was directing the heat flow across his back. Man, this is better than the deep tissue massage I got in Thailand. You guys ever had a good massage? Life-changing? Totally worth it. He's comparing Pod 7 to vacation activities, Vex said. Multiple vacation activities. I have eyes. Commander, what's his time? 23 minutes. 7 minutes until protocol completion. Has he used the emergency release? He hasn't even looked at it. Admiral. Quix watched in silence as Jack continued his improvised spa session. The human had wedged himself into a corner where 3 heat vents converged. Eyes closed, breathing slowly, in what appeared to be a meditative state. This changes everything, she said finally. If humans can complete Pod 7, if they can treat it as recreational activity, we need to completely reassess our training protocols. Either the pod is useless, or every other species in the galaxy is weaker than we thought. Or humans are just built different, Vex suggested. Built different. Is that the technical term? It's the only term that fits, Admiral. Jack opened his eyes, looked directly at the observation window despite the one-way glass, and waved. Hey, whoever's watching, you guys have been great. Seriously. Seriously. This is exactly what I needed after that long shuttle ride. How much time left? Vex activated the comm. 6 minutes. Morrison. Awesome. I'm gonna do some cool-down stretches. You don't want to just stop cold after a good workout. That's how you get injured. He began a stretching routine that looked like it came from an exercise video, providing detailed explanations of each movement. Muscle groups being targeted, and common mistakes to avoid. The galaxy's finest warriors watched a human give a fitness seminar from inside their most feared training device. I want full medical workup on this human, Admiral Quix ordered. Complete biological analysis. I want to know everything about their physiology, their homeworld, their This is not normal. I'll arrange it, Admiral. And Commander? Yes, Admiral. When he finishes, offer him a job. Anyone who can turn Pod 7 into a wellness retreat deserves to be an instructor. Vex blinked all 4 eyes. You want him teaching? I want to understand how humans do this. If one can succeed, others can. And if they can, we need to know why our training is failing everyone else. The final minutes ticked down. Jack moved through his cool-down routine with the calm focus of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. At 28 minutes, he sat down cross-legged in the center of the pod, hands on his knees, eyes closed. Is he meditating? Cree asked. Appears so, Dr. Helix confirmed. Heart rate is decreasing. He's entering a rest state. In Pod 7, he's resting. Of course he is, Vex muttered. The timer hit 30 minutes. The pod's systems began their shutdown sequence, gradually reducing temperature, normalizing gravity, clearing the atmosphere. The holographic opponents faded away. Jack stood up slowly, stretched one more time, and walked to the exit. The door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. He stepped out into the training bay, dripping with sweat, slightly red in the face, but smiling like he'd just had the best day of his life. The observation room emptied as everyone rushed to the bay. By the time Vex and Admiral Quix arrived, Jack was surrounded by a crowd of aliens staring at him like he was some kind of prophet. "Hey everyone," Jack said, waving. "That was great. Seriously. Best workout I've had in months. Is there a shower around here? And maybe some protein. I'm starving." Dr. Hallex pushed through with medical scanners. "Please hold still. I need to examine you." "Sure thing, Doc. Everything okay? You just completed Pod 7. "Everything is very much not okay. You violated every statistical model we have." "Cool. Is that good?" Admiral Quicks stepped forward. The crowd parted instantly. Jack looked at her crystalline form with interest. "Whoa, you're shiny. That's a natural thing, right? Not like armor or anything." "I am Admiral Quicks, commander of this facility. You just completed a training protocol that has defeated every species in the Galactic Union." "Yeah, Commander Vex mentioned that. Good workout. Really got the heart rate up. You guys should market this. Like, seriously, humans would pay good money for this experience. You want to pay to be tortured? It's not torture. It's high-intensity interval training with environmental challenge. Totally different vibe. You could call it extreme conditioning or something. Very marketable." Vex felt something break in his mind. It might have been his sanity. "Morrison, that pod is designed to simulate the worst possible conditions from hundreds of planets. It's meant to break warriors, to test their absolute limits." "Right, and it's great for that. But it's also basically a really advanced sauna with a workout program built in. You've got heat, you've got resistance training with the gravity thing, you've got cardio with the combat holograms. It's like a gym and a spa had a baby. A really intense baby." "He's not wrong," Dr. Helix said, studying his scanner. "From a human physiological perspective, this would be considered extreme exercise in challenging conditions. Difficult, but not impossible. Humans apparently evolved to hunt prey by chasing it until it died of exhaustion in extreme heat." "We did what now?" Jack asked. "Persistence hunting. Your species would chase animals for hours in hot climates until they collapsed from heat exhaustion, while you remained functional." "Huh. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Humans are pretty good at the endurance thing. We're not the fastest or the strongest, but we can just keep going. It's kind of our thing." Admiral Quicks's crystalline structure was pulsing rapidly. "Your species evolved to be pursuit predators in hostile heat. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds intense. We just called it hunting. And your planet, Earth. It's really a Class 7 garden world, far as I know. I mean, we've got some rough spots. Deserts, jungles, Arctic regions, oceans with things that want to eat you. Whether that can kill you, a few volcanoes. But yeah, pretty nice. Overall, good pizza." "Things that want to eat you," Quicks repeated. "Whether that can kill you, volcanoes. This is your definition of a garden world. Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to have some challenges, right? Otherwise, life would be boring." Vex watched Admiral Quicks process this information. He'd known her for a decade. He'd never seen her speechless. It was strangely satisfying. "Morrison," she said finally, "how would you like a position as a training instructor? Here, at the fancy space station. Here, we need to understand human capabilities. You could help us develop appropriate training protocols." Jack considered this, scratching his chin. "Would I get to use Pod 7 whenever I want?" "You want to use it again?" "Well, yeah. It's a great facility. Maybe add some music, get a better water system going. But the core experience is solid. I was thinking I could come here for like an hour a day, do my workout, relax. Would really help with the stress of being in space. You want to use Pod 7 as stress relief? Is that weird? It's basically a really good sauna with extra features." The crowd around them was silent. Somewhere in the back, someone started laughing. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire training bay was filled with the sound of multiple species expressing disbelief through laughter. Jack looked around, confused. "Did I say something funny?" Vex stepped forward, put one of his 4 hands on Jack's shoulder. Morrison, you've just completed the impossible. Violated every scientific model we have, and asked to do it again for fun. Yes, that's weird. But I'm starting to think weird is humanity's specialty. Oh, well, cool. So do I get the instructor job? Yes, Admiral Quick said. Yes, you do, with full access to Pod 7. May the cosmos help us all. Jack's smile got even wider. Awesome. Can I request some modifications? Like, cup holders would be great. And maybe some aromatherapy. Eucalyptus oil in the steam would really take it to the next level. Eucalyptus oil, Vex said flatly. Trust me on this one, Commander. It'll change your life. As the crowd dispersed, still talking excitedly about what they'd witnessed, Vex stood with Admiral Quicks and watched Jack Morrison head toward the showers, already planning his next session. We're going to have to reclassify Earth as a death world, Quick said quietly. Probably, Vex agreed, and completely redesign our training protocols. Most likely, and accept that humans are either the toughest species in the galaxy or too stupid to know when they should quit. I'm going with both, Admiral. Both works. In the distance, they could hear Jack singing in the shower. Something about an eye of a tiger. The acoustics made it echo through the entire facility. Admiral Quicks's crystalline form pulsed in what might have been resignation. This is going to be a very interesting assignment. Welcome to my world, Admiral. Welcome to my world. 2 hours after completing the protocol, Jack Morrison was sitting in the medical bay while Dr. Helix ran every diagnostic test known to galactic medicine and invented a few new ones specifically for humans. The results were simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Your cellular structure is incredibly resilient, Dr. Helix explained. I stalks quivering with scientific excitement. Your mitochondrial density is off the charts. Your cardiovascular efficiency is remarkable. And your cooling system, this sweating mechanism. It's like nothing we've seen in a spacefaring species. Is that why everyone kept staring at me? The sweat thing. Most species don't excrete water from their skin. It's considered wasteful and somewhat disgusting. Huh. Yeah, I guess it is pretty gross when you think about it, but it works. It works exceptionally well. Combined with your bipedal structure, efficient breathing, and apparently ridiculous pain tolerance, you're built like an endurance machine. Jack shrugged. We're good at going the distance. Not much else going for us, really. There's faster species, right? Stronger ones, many. But none that can maintain performance in hostile conditions like humans can. It's a unique, evolutionary adaptation. In the Admiral's office, a very different conversation was happening. Admiral Quicks had called an emergency meeting of department heads. The room was packed with senior officers from a dozen species, all trying to understand how their fundamental assumptions about combat training had been shattered by one human, and his complete inability to recognize danger. Commander Vex stood at the front, presenting his findings with the exhausted air of someone whose worldview had been destroyed and rebuilt in a single afternoon. The data is clear, he said, displaying biometric readings on the holographic projector. Morrison's performance wasn't a fluke. His physiological responses were consistent with his species' adaptations. If one human can complete Pod 7, others can. Possibly all of them. That's impossible, said Commander Threx. A Theraxian whose champion had failed in 4 minutes. Pod 7 was designed to incorporate the worst environmental conditions from 300 planets. No single species should be able to handle all of them. Except humans did exactly that. And the reason why is actually terrifying. Vex pulled up a new display, showing Earth's environmental data. This is what we classified as a Class 7 garden world. Pleasant, moderate, safe. The data scrolled across the screen. Temperature ranges from -40 to +50 Celsius. Humidity from 0 to 100%. Atmospheric pressure variations. Extreme weather events. Tectonic activity. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, wildfires. This is a death world, someone said. This is a Tuesday on Earth, Vex corrected. Humans evolved to handle extreme environmental variation as a standard feature of their existence. What we consider torture conditions. They consider whether Pod 7 doesn't scare them because their entire planet is Pod 7. Admiral Quicks leaned forward, explained how we missed this in their evaluation. Because they presented themselves as average. Their technology is mid-range. Their society is relatively peaceful. Their biology seemed unremarkable. We made assumptions based on their civilization, not their evolution. Dr. Helix joined the presentation. Multiple eye stalks focused on the data. I've been researching Earth's evolutionary history. Humans are persistence hunters, as I mentioned, but it's deeper than that. They evolved to travel long distances on two legs in extreme heat while carrying tools and water. Their ancestors could track prey for days across hostile terrain. They're endurance specialists who adapted to survive in almost any climate. Every climate Threx challenged. That's impossible. Species Specialis humans didn't. They spread across their entire planet. From Arctic to desert to jungle to islands. They adapted culturally and technologically rather than biologically. They can't survive extremes naturally, but they can tolerate them long enough to fix the situation. That tolerance is what makes them unique. It's also what makes them dangerous. Admiral Quicks said quietly, if humans can complete Pod 7, what else can they do that we assumed was impossible? The room went silent. It was a good question. A terrifying question. Vex continued, I recommend we immediately begin developing human-specific training protocols. Our current standards are apparently too easy for them. Too easy, Threx repeated. Our torture device is too easy. For humans, yes. Morrison asked if we could turn up the intensity. Of course he did. We also need to reassess Earth's classification. A world that produces species this resilient should not be rated as safe. Reclassification will take time, Quick said. We need Galactic Council approval, scientific review, multiple surveys. Could take years. Then we start now. Because if humans are this capable and we've been treating them as average, we've made a strategic error. A big one. The meeting continued for hours, diving into implications, protocols, policy changes. By the end, everyone agreed on two things. First, humans were far more capable than anyone had realized. Second, that was probably going to cause problems. Meanwhile, Jack had finished his medical examination and wandered into the facility's recreation area. He found a group of trainees from various species, all looking exhausted from standard training exercises. Hey, he said, grabbing a seat. How's it going? They stared at him. He was already famous, the human who beat Pod 7, the crazy mammal who treated torture as cardio. You're Morrison, one of them said, a Corellian with blue-tinted skin. You really completed the pod. Yeah, it was great. You guys tried it. My species record is 6 minutes. I would never attempt it. Oh, it's not that bad. Just gotta stay hydrated and keep moving. The heat is intense, but manageable. Manageable, the Corellian repeated. 200 degrees is manageable. I mean, yeah, it's hot, but not like unbearable. You ever been in a sauna? We don't have those. We're from an ice world. Heat is painful. Right? That makes sense. Probably wouldn't recommend Pod 7 for you then. Different strokes for different folks. Asintari trainee, crystalline and sharp-angled, leaned forward. My species shattered in that device, literally broke apart, and you exercised in it. Sorry about your guy. That sucks. But, yeah, the workout was solid. Great resistance training with the gravity mods. You're insane. I get that a lot. Jack ended up spending the next hour answering questions about Earth, human biology, and why his species seemed to enjoy suffering. He explained persistence hunting, marathon running, ultramarathons, triathlons, and something called CrossFit that made several species genuinely concerned for humanity's mental health. You run 4 hours? For fun? The Corellian asked. Some people do. Not really my thing. I prefer lifting weights. But yeah, running is popular. Some folks do it competitively. How far? Marathons are about 42 kilometers. Ultramarathons can be 100 kilometers or more. More than 100 kilometers. Rana. Voluntarily. Well, somebody's gotta win. Your species is broken, the Zentari said. Evolutionarily damaged. This is not normal behavior. Maybe not, Jack agreed cheerfully. But it's fun. Life's too short not to challenge yourself. You know? They didn't know. Most species viewed physical challenges as something to avoid, not pursue. But Jack's enthusiasm was infectious. By the time he left, 3 trainees had asked if humans could teach them endurance training. One had asked if she could try Pod 7 with human supervision. Jock sighed sore, happy to help, completely oblivious to the fact that he was accidentally recruiting for the galaxy's first human-led training program. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Helix was compiling his final report. The title read, Physiological Analysis of Human Subject, Morrison. Implications for Galactic Training Standards and the Necessity of Reclassifying Earth as a Class 9 Death World. It was going to be a bestseller in xenobiology circles. In Aerofis Admiral Quicks reviewed Vex's recommendations. Reclassify Earth. Develop human-specific protocols. Recruit more humans for training positions. Acknowledge that the galaxy's military standards might be calibrated for species that did not evolve in environmental hell. She approved everything. Then she added one more note. Install cup holders and eucalyptus oil dispensers in Pod 7. If they were going to let humans use it as a sauna, they might as well do it properly. 6 months later, the Galactic Combat Training Facility had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Pod 7, once the feared symbol of ultimate failure, now had a waiting list. A human waiting list. Vex stood in the observation room, all 4 arms crossed, watching the latest session. Inside the pod, 3 humans were conducting what they called a group workout. They'd modified the environment to include synchronized training routines, motivational music from Earth, and yes, eucalyptus oil in the steam vents. This is my life now, he muttered. Kree scuttled up beside him, antennae twitching with what might have been amusement. It's better than the empty pod we had before. It's a spa, Kree. We turned a military training device into a spa. A very popular spa. We've had requests from 14 human ships asking if their crews can schedule sessions. Of course we have. The pod had been officially renamed the Human Wellness Center after the 3rd month, when it became clear that no human was ever going to fail it and most of them actively enjoyed it. Command had stopped fighting the inevitable. If humans wanted to treat extreme conditions as recreational therapy, fine. At least someone was using the expensive equipment. Jack Morrison had become the facility's most popular instructor. His classes on endurance training, heat tolerance, and what he called embracing the suck were packed with aliens trying to understand how humans did the impossible. Most of them couldn't match human performance, but they were improving. Slowly, painfully, but improving. In the training bay, Jack was leading a mixed species session on persistence techniques. Okay, everyone, remember, pain is just your body's way of saying, hey, we're working here. It's not a stop signal. It's information. You acknowledge it and keep moving. A Thraxian raised one clawed hand. But what if the pain means injury? That's different pain. You'll learn the difference. Sharp, sudden pain. That's injury. Stop immediately. Burning muscle pain. That's just effort. You push through that. Your species is insane, the Thraxian muttered. Yeah, we get that a lot. All right, let's do another set. 15 minutes on the endurance track. Moderate gravity. 70% effort. Focus on your breathing and pace yourselves. The group groaned, but complied. Jack watched them go, nodded in satisfaction, then headed for his afternoon session in Pod 7. His personal pod time had become legendary. He'd set the record at 3 hours straight, and rumor had it he'd tried to sleep in there once, but security made him leave. Admiral Quicks found him in the prep room. Morrison. A word. Admiral, Hey, what's up? I wanted to inform you that Earth's reclassification has been approved. As of yesterday, your homeworld is officially designated a Class 9 Death World. Jack paused in his stretching. Wait, really? We're a death world. Extreme temperature variations, hostile weather, tectonic instability, predatory fauna, toxic flora, insufficient protection from stellar radiation. And to quote the report, atmospheric conditions that would be considered hazardous on most civilized worlds. Huh. I mean, yeah, when you list it out like that, it sounds bad. It is bad, Morrison. Most species would struggle to survive on your planet without extensive protective equipment. But we just call it outside. Yes, that's exactly the problem. Quix's crystalline structure pulsed with what Jack had learned to recognize as exasperation. You've fundamentally changed how we approach training. 14 facilities across the galaxy are now requesting human consultants. The Galactic Council wants to establish human-led endurance programs. You've created an entire new military specialty. And that's cool. Always happy to help. You don't understand. You've made every other species in the galaxy realize they're soft. Oh well, I mean, different species, different strengths. Right. You guys are fast, strong, smart. We're just stubborn. Remarkably stubborn. Stupidly stubborn. Dangerously stubborn. I feel like there's a compliment in there somewhere. Despite herself, Quix's structure flickered with amusement. There is. You've impressed us, Morrison. All of you. Humanity went from unknown to essential in less than a year. That's remarkable. Thanks, Admiral. Does this mean I can get those upgrades to Pod 7 I requested? The sound system is really outdated, and I had some ideas about a cold plunge pool for after sessions. A cold plunge pool in the training pod. Recovery is important. You can't just go hard all the time. You gotta let the body rest and repair. Cold water immersion is great for that. You want to add a relaxation feature to Pod 7? I mean, yeah. Full wellness experience. You know, Quix made a sound that her translator rendered as a sigh, though her species didn't actually breathe. Submit the proposal. I'll review it. Awesome. Oh, and I was thinking, what if we added a Finnish sauna rotation? Traditional Finnish saunas go way hotter than Pod 7. Could be good for advanced training. Hotter than 200 degrees. Finnish saunas can hit 110 Celsius. Dry heat. Super intense. Really gets the blood flowing. Your species voluntarily enters chambers hotter than Pod 7. Well, yeah, it's relaxing. Quix stared at him for a long moment. Morrison, I want you to understand something. Pod 7 was designed by military scientists, specifically to break warriors. It combined 300 world's worst conditions into one device. It was meant to be impossible. Right. And you want to make it hotter. For variety, you can't do the same workout every day or you plateau. Of course, workout variety in the torture device. I mean, it's not really tortured if you're prepared for it. Quix turned to leave, then paused. The humans on the recreation deck have started organizing something called a Tough Mudder. Do you know what that is? Oh yeah, obstacle courses with mud and water and stuff. They're fun. They've invited other species to participate. We've had 17 medical alerts filed in advance. It's really not that dangerous. Just gotta commit. And don't overthink it. That phrase, don't overthink it, appears frequently in human training philosophy. Well, yeah, overthinking makes things harder. Sometimes you just gotta do the thing. Just do the thing, Quix repeated. That's humanity's approach to impossible challenges. Just do the thing. Pretty much. We're doomed. The whole galaxy is doomed. You going to inspire everyone to attempt increasingly stupid feats of endurance, just to prove they can match humans. Is that bad? Ask me in a year. She left. Crystalline form refracting light in patterns that suggested deep concern for the future. Jack finished his stretching and headed into Pod 7. The door sealed behind him with its familiar hiss. The systems activated. Heat flooded the chamber. Gravity increased. The combat holograms spawned, and Jack closed his eyes, felt the warmth seep into his muscles, and smiled. Perfect, he said to nobody. Absolutely perfect. In the observation room, Vex watched the monitors with Kree. They'd seen this hundreds of times now. It never got less weird. Commander, Kree said carefully, do you think humans are special because they're tough, or tough because they don't know they should quit? Vex considered this. Both. Definitely both. That's terrifying. Yes, it is. They're our allies, right? Yes. Good, I'd hate to fight them. Everyone would Kree. Everyone would... On the monitors, Jack had started his workout. He was singing again. Something about thunder and lightning. Very, very frightening. His voice echoed through Pod 7, through the observation room, through the entire training bay. Somewhere on Earth, a planet full of humans was going about their day, completely unaware that they'd been reclassified as a death world. They were commuting in extreme weather, exercising voluntarily, eating foods that would poison other species, and generally treating their hostile environment as normal. And throughout the galaxy, military planners were realizing that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was their complete inability to recognize when something should be impossible. In the facility's administrative office, the final report was filed. Training Pod 7, once the symbol of ultimate failure, had been converted to dual purpose. Military training for non-humans. Wellness retreat for humans. The report concluded with a single line that would be quoted in military academies for generations. Recommendation: never underestimate a species that evolved to jog in the heat for fun. And in Pod 7, Jack Morrison finished his workout, requested a towel, and scheduled his next session for tomorrow afternoon. Because why wouldn't he? It was, after all, just a really good sauna.